at Salt Lake Community College.
Welcome, thank you. Thank you, welcome.
First baby doctor.
Welcome.
Shad Brunson,
Welcome. I'm sorry, say that again.
Utah schools for the deaf and blind.
All right, thank you all for coming. We hope you are joining us after this. All right. So March is known as Procurement Month, and we were able to get a declaration from the governor to declare March 24th to 30th as a week. So, yeah. So if you feel so inclined, you can come up and share more information. It is kind of exciting, and we've got a lot of fun things because it is Procurement Month this month. All right, we're going to move on to some business. So last meeting, we told the membership, and then we also sent emails with some of the updates that we were making to the handbook and bylaws. We did not receive any comments, and so at this time we'd like to ratify it. Would anyone make a motion to do that? Thank you. Anyone second it? Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Thank you. We're going to go ahead and ratify those changes and then upload them to our website. All right, we're going to have Zach go over the manager and buyer for your nominations and just kind of give a shout out at this time.
Howdy, y'all. Okay, so who do you know that is an awesome buyer who's done great things for public procurement? You have. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. All right, so it's that time of the year where we like to recognize those who are making a contribution to public procurement. Typically, we've done it in March, but I have to confess a little mea culpa. I did not get that out soon enough, so we're going to actually award those in September. So that gives us a little extra time. So we have a lovely questionnaire that we're going to be passing out, which has some information. So if there's anyone that you'd like to nominate for either buyer of the year or manager of the year, just make a note of that, and then we'll reach out and try to gather some more information, so that way we can have some really awesome people that we can recognize for their contributions to public procurement. So please let us know what's going on. That way we can all share and enjoy what's happening in our profession.
Thank you. And then we're also going to hear from Jason. Give us some updates about the reverse trade show that is coming up.
All right, thank you. So our main meeting for our chapter is not a thing this year. So it's going to be the reverse trade show. It's been very, very exciting. We had to close vendor registration because we had maxed out on capacity at the facility. We've netted $28,000 for our chapter, which will go towards scholarships, great speakers, and different events for our chapter. So we're very excited about it. You should have received, well, at least the managers and directors should have received an email from CJ, from the state, asking for you to give information of who will be attending the reverse trade show, who will be manning booths and things like that. And so we ask you to please reply to that ASAP so that we can make plans for that. The show is on April 29th, which is a Monday, at the Slick Miller campus, which is roughly 94th South and about around I-15. We'll be giving out more information as we get closer, but we would love for you to come support your entities, be there for the vendors and build that network. We also will need volunteers to help with the check-in process. We have about 300 vendors who will be coming to this, and we want to make it as smooth as possible for them to check in and really have a positive experience. And so, are we giving out things for people to fill out today? Is that what that is? So on this sheet that you're going to fill out, if you're available that day to help volunteer early in the morning to help people check in or other things throughout the day, please just put your information on there and then I'll be in touch with you. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So last time we also talked about the CPPB and CPPO exams that are available through PPCC. And so if you are interested in that, and if you are getting ready to study and take a test either in May or in October, there is a study class that's going on Tuesdays from 5:30 to 6:30. The details of the location and stuff like that is on the back of the agenda that you have. And so you're very welcome to come. I'm pretty sure there's going to be like baked goods there too, because, you know, it's like more interesting. So we are going to do another questionnaire. You guys were so wonderful last time. We do have 3 more $5 gift cards available for the top 3 that we pull out. So we're going to take the next 5-10 minutes to fill out another questionnaire, different questions. There's pens, crayons, pencils. Anyway, so thanks.
My eyes.
There's a friend up there. I filled it out the brand last month, and it was completely illegible. My handwriting's poor, and then adding in brand just made it even worse.
I was like, I can't even. I write too big.
That's the problem, right? And it just stole your water. I knew I had a water. Then I tried to open it and like this is open.
Okay, we're gonna give you one more minute if you want to enter the drawing, otherwise you just give it to us at the end of the meeting. So raise it high if you want to do that. All right, are we good? We're gonna have our amazing speaker pick it out for us. All right, Diane Schmidt, come on up. Brandon Thomas. And Sharon Pierce. Come on up. Okay, thank you everyone for being willing to do that. It really does help us. Okay, so at this time I'm going to introduce our speaker. Her name is Lisa Prima. She is NIGP's Global Practices Manager. For over 13 years, she has worked collaboratively with academic staff and volunteers and other stakeholders to plan and execute community events and initiatives for a nonprofit organization, to manage a university lecture series, and more recently to develop public procurement guidance. Lisa earned her Bachelor's of Music in Cello Performance at Indiana University, her Master's of Public Management at Carnegie Mellon University, and her Professional Life Coaching Certificate at
Duquesne University.
Duquesne University. So please welcome Lisa.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And so far it's been wonderful. I'm happy to start this part. So 13 years not at NIGP. I've been at NIGP since December of 2013. So that was time before. So I like to customize things. So I asked, what are the topics that you are most interested in so I can provide something helpful? And 2 of the 4 topics that rose to the surface were ethical procurement and future trends. So this came as a surprise to me because when I asked the question, in my mind, I was thinking by customization that I was thinking of which practice do you want me to delve more deeply into? So like, future trends, but it's all good. So I learned a lot in the preparation of today. So ethical procurement, and there is a global best practice for it. So let's proceed. All right, so today, what's it up? Oh, I'm not gonna sit. So, okay, oh, you're gonna sit, okay, thank you. Okay, objectives. So this is kind of our roadmap. Mostly say I'm gonna provide you with resources so that you have a wider breadth of information to then apply to your needs. The need for this part being an ethics policy. And what I want to emphasize throughout, it's really important to have something in writing. Why would that be? Why is it, I mean, there's things that everybody gets and everybody knows and there's organizational culture, but why would it be important to have it in writing? That's right, you can hold people to it, exactly. You have something to support you and back you up, you can enforce something. So it's always important. And what about, how many of you have the same exact supervisor manager that you've always had? 2, right. So what happens when the nice understanding person that gets procurement leaves and somebody else comes in and they have all these ideas of how they're going to improve the organization? Where does that leave you if you have nothing written? All right, so that's your support, that's your backing, it's important. And then I'm hoping you brought your ethics policies with you if you have one, or at least even if you didn't, you're aware of the issues that you're facing or what the needs are. And so I'm hoping that there's time for all of you to get together with whatever we bring to discussion and then take all that and try and synthesize it or at least share with one another and provide insight. Yeah. So what could go wrong? I mean, ethics, we don't know what's right and wrong, don't we? We would never do anything that we should. It's so clear cut. So why are things in the newspapers all the time? Why are things happening all around us all the time? So this list is from, it's Department of Defense's Encyclopedia of Ethical Failure or Ethical Violation. I have the cover sheet there, but I can't remember the title. But so this is just a small example of the things that could go wrong. And how do things go wrong? You know, if we have such a clear sense of what's right and wrong, how can things go wrong? So what happens?
Money happens.
Money, and what is it about money? Okay, right, so things become too tempting, right? So there's, so I really don't know. It's a Government Procurement Magazine, there's an article and column called Language Matters, and in this last issue, the topic, coincidentally, was ethics. And I think about, well, what is it, how do people go wrong? What is it that happens? And I'm sure there's as many people as there are reasons for things to go wrong, but I hit on 3. And this is because in 2013, I went to Patagonia to go hiking, and the person I was going with gave me a whole list. They thought I was too Pollyannish and too upbeat and too positive. So they gave me a reading list of books like Deep Survival and Into the Void and all these things, so I would be realistic about this trip. And one of the main concepts in Deep Survival, which I really took to heart, is it gives all these stories about people that should know better, professional athletes. And somehow they do things that, like, you just have to say, what were you thinking? And it turns out they weren't. They weren't thinking. Their memories of exhilaration, like let's say they're snowmobilers, that memory, that emotional memory, it is so clear and sharp and tempting that short circuits, that beats the analytical brain to the punch. And so before they know what they're doing, they're going up, this pristine avalanche-ready condition hill. And they perish. They actually perish. So that's one thing. One is that our emotions and our experience and that exploration is much more attractive and faster than our analytical brains. So sometimes things are so tempting, we're in the middle of it before we even know what we're doing. Like somebody just runs and splashes into the water and like, oh my God, it's only this deep. So that's one thing. And another thing people can get caught in it is it's mission creep, right? So how many of you have a mission statement for your entity? All right. Mission statements are really important. Mission statements they declare who you are and what you do. So that when some really great idea comes and it doesn't fit the mission statement, you can compare it and you can say, well, that's a really cool idea, but it's not who we are, it's not what we do. So it's really important to have a mission statement that everybody reads, reviews, and compares to what the plan is. Another thing that's really important is a vision statement. Who has a vision statement? Okay, vision is all right, so you all have work. You all have homework. Vision statement is, where are we going? How will I know when we get there? How will I know when we realize we're working really hard on who we are and what we do? How will we know when we've arrived? How will we know when we've achieved what we set out to do? That's your vision statement, and it literally is vision, seeing. So a really well-written vision statement, it's like the Martin Luther King Jr. one, to be able to see black and white children walking hand in hand. When you see that, you know you've achieved your mission. You can see it. So think about a mission for your specific entity that you will know you've achieved what you're working toward. And then values are also value statement. Anybody have value statements in their strategic plan, which we may not have? Okay. The values are your why. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit, but your values are your why. That's what helps you, motivates you, and helps you make good decisions and take good actions. The values are your motivator. We will go into that. Okay. So don't get scared. These are just the list of resources that by the end of this session you will be familiar with and you will know how to access. And these will all feed into the ethics policy that you will have right for your entity and for your procurement agency, for the procurement part of it. Okay. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you how you can find them, right? So here's these great things. Good luck. Right. So and I encourage you to do your phone, because if you ping, then we get credit and we go up in the rating. So every time I show you a resource, I want you to find it on your phones. So this is the NIGP website. Everybody familiar with it? Great. Okay. Second, top navigation over client procurement resources. Under that is guidance. And top right there, global best practices. So I'm going to ask right off, who knows what a global best practice is? Who's familiar with global best practices? Jason is. Okay, this is, okay, the gentleman in blue shirt. This is really good for me to know because I don't want deer in the headlights. Global best practices are documents that they have guidance in them. So procurement is a big, it can be an overwhelming thing, and there are topics within procurement, like specifications, like protests, like invitation to bids and requests for proposals and all that. What we do is collaboration. We bring we bring academic task force. We created a task force. So there's academics, there are procurement people, sometimes now suppliers even, and we create this task force. We do a lot of research, and we generate content to help you, to support you, not just help you, but to support you. For instance, there are global best practice documents, so they're documents, they're paper, print. There are ones on the evaluation committee, the evaluation process. So you can use these to support you so that when you have an evaluation committee and somebody says, I don't need to sign that no conflict disclosure that you have there, you said, oh, yes, you do. It's policy would be more a stronger thing, but these best practices you can point to and say, yes, it is best practice to assert and sign that you have no conflicts. So this is, I want to give you a treasure trove today. So on this website, I really want you to explore it. So global best practices, they're on all kinds of topics. There are 3, and we're starting a 4th one in information technology. How to procure information technology, so it's not so overwhelming. There's one on public-private partnerships. Lots of different topics. And some of them are listed on that darker handout. All right. Any questions on global best practices? They do go through review, vetting, and all that. Okay, and there's an insight. Who knows what insight is? Okay, how many of you are NIGP members? Okay, so you have access to the website. On the website, there's a place that says Insight. And if your members, there are communities to that. For instance, there's one called Purge Issues. And if you remember nothing else from today, remember Purge Issues. Okay, I can use the board. Okay, this one's really important. This is the name of the community, and I strongly recommend, if nothing else from today, that you join this community. This is like over 1,000, I don't know, maybe more, I don't know how many, I won't say a number. This is a community of your colleagues. So anytime you're feeling alone and stressed because you're supposed to do a solicitation and you have no idea how to do it, there's where you go, and you say, I have a solicitation, or blah, 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 or we're trying to figure out thresholds. Anything you want to know, you go to Purge Issues, Insight Community, and ask. When I first started in NIGP, and I read them daily, I get the digest, the daily digest, you can get them in real time if you want. There was, you posted discussion, there was one asking, who's done a solicitation for goats to eat excess vegetation? And I thought, okay, anything, you can ask anything. You can ask anything on this. And people answer, people will respond. So Purge Issues. All right, so that's 4 members, but all these other things, they're free. They're free. You go there. So the global best practices are guidance, and it's descriptive, not prescriptive. So it's not like you must and or else. It's like, we've done research, we're putting this out there. You have your own laws, you have your own ways of doing things, you have your own Utah code, but apply it as you will. It's out there for you. It's just for you. Values and guiding principles. Who's familiar with the public procurement values and guiding principles? Okay. What are they? Actually, you got a cheat sheet right in front of you. Exactly. So there are 6 of them. They're right in front of you. There are position papers written by the Legislative Position Committee. They take a stand on different issues, and we're going to see some of them today. Anyways, it's a really good place to hang out. Okay, so that's how you find a lot of the resources that we're going to talk about today. Thanks. I would like to start with definitions because I think it's important to have a shared understanding. So let's say you're going to build, hopefully, a policy on ethics. Well, you want to all be in agreement. The cartoons, they have your stuff bubble over your head. You really want to make sure everybody's got the same bubble before you go writing policy. So this is actually a Merriam-Webster definition, which is kind of generic, right? So something maybe a whole agency would use. And then if we go to the next slide, this is the NIGP Online Dictionary has this definition, which is really more specific to procurement. So in the same way, a code of ethics is kind of the general underlying principles of ethics, but then you want to have your specific policy for procurement. Okay, on to the next. All right, how to support it, but I guess that doesn't show up really well. All right. These are the three pillars of public procurement. This is the purpose. This is the real deep foundation. This is the rock solid. It's hard to read. So public trust, public service, and justice. So justice is like treating suppliers impartially, not having any kind of favoritism and all that, and competition for everybody. Letting everybody know the same thing. If there's information given, it goes to everybody. How's everybody doing so far? Are you with me? Any questions? Okay, I'm just this is a data dump today. This is just giving you, exposing you. You don't have to ingest it. It's just an awareness, because it's all here for you. So, but this is, I don't want to say about zero, because that's awful. We can think of all the connotations, but this is purpose foundation. So public trust, everything you do, if you have a question, should I do this, shouldn't I do this, for ethics, ethical procurement, is this going to increase the public trust? Is this going to endanger it? Is it going to violate it? You know, it makes me think of, who's into feng shui? I'm not, but like what they say is when you're trying to declutter, they say like hold the objects. Does it make you feel good? Keep it. Neutral, makes you like, ooh, I remember that, get rid of it. So same thing, this is your feng shui of public procurement. Does it increase public trust? Is it providing public service? Is it treating people justly, fairly, impartially? Move forward, make that decision, take that action.
Lisa?
Yes.
It reminds me of something that my neighbor's mother would tell her grandchildren. And it was, if you ever have to question something, whether it's right or wrong, go with it's wrong, because you're questioning it deep down. You know,
That's right. That's right. That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So out of those three, public service, public trust, justice, out of those come values and guiding principles, practices, everything emanates from those three pillars. So the next thing that comes out of the pillars are the values. So we have a little thing. So I know you have paper, I know you have pens. And so here's the question. This is an exercise to explore our values. All right, so think back, because most work days probably you're rushing, you just do what you have to get to work and all that. But what about the weekend? What about the weekend when you have time, hopefully, or you make time? I want you to reflect, and actually I want each of you to write down on paper. I want you to describe breakfast. What was it like? Was there a lot of preparation? Did you create a menu, go to the store? Did you invite people? Were you alone? Did you go to the drive-in? Did you skip it all together? So seriously, I want you to just write down, and we're going to use that to explore values. Make it real. Because a lot of these things, mission, vision, they go on a shelf, they don't do, but we want to make them real because they are important. And, yeah, so go ahead. That's your answer. I grab an orange. It's crazy. There's no like, penalties or grading system. It's just, breakfast. You got up and what happens? Do you set the table where you have runners and flowers? Is it like this, elaborate, or is it more like each person for themselves? Any questions? Okay, are you good, or you need more time? Okay, anybody to volunteer, describe breakfast? Looking for volunteers? Thank you, David.
So on Saturday, I went to Sweet Lake, Light and biscuits for breakfast. So I had breakfast with friends and those sorts of things. Eggs, hash browns, and a raspberry.
Very nice. Okay, so let's go underneath that underlying principle, just like we know that the pillars underlie everything about procurement. So you took the time to drive somewhere, didn't you? And sounds like it was so you could be with your friends, right? So what's the value? You know, friendship is a value. Okay, and it was a really nice breakfast, so can we jump and say like good food and aesthetics?
Absolutely.
Okay. So good food, aesthetics. And about how long did you spend there?
We were there about an hour and a half. I had to wait 30 minutes for my friends to show up.
But you did. You waited to them and you all had a nice time and you spent time together because your friends were the value, you value those connections.
Next time invite other friends.
Okay,
Who wants to go up on time?
somebody else, please. Maybe the woman with the orange, or no, oh, did you see something? Who were you pointing at? Oh, please.
I had a couple of my grandkids sleep over, so we made sure.
Wait, you know what, where's the other free microphone? Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot. That's great, that's perfect. All right. Okay, tell us all.
Okay, so we had a couple of grandkids sleep over, and then when they got up in the morning and we were all tired, we made pancakes with blueberries.
Okay, so family is a value.
Yes.
And what would you say about, cooking together? So it's family spending time together.
Spending time.
Right, so doing something fun, doing something so you can bond with family. So to me, it sounds like family is the big thing there with the choice.
Yes.
Right, and somebody else that maybe rushes through driving, skips it all together, has an orange. Vicki? And okay, so the value? Time, right? Would you say? Time. All right, so sometimes we don't take time to have an elaborate, breakfast because time is important. Yeah, and the person that grabbed the orange, yeah.
Two high schoolers, and they're like on different
So I have two high schoolers and we're all going different directions on the weekends. In fact, most of the time we'll meet up around noon and have brunch, but for the most part, I don't survive well if I don't have food in my purse. And they know where the food is in the house too, but you have to have it in the house to begin with, so you gotta pre-purchase, pre-plan. What does my family prefer to grab and go? String cheese, oranges, nuts, crackers, protein bars, granola bars, cereals. Okay, so so I'm hearing the family, but what I'm hearing is nutrition is important. Because all the things you're mentioning, they have some nutritional value. So even though you're grabbing and going and you're meeting later and taking time, all the things that you mentioned, there's nutritional value. Now, we're not drive-through people.
So nutrition, health, is a value. So you see how this works? Our values drive our actions. They drive our decisions to plan and get a menu and take time for the store and all this so that we have things to grab, because time is really important too. And everybody doing their own activities is important. Okay, so these are your personal values. So what happens when you get to work? You leave those at home and then you put on your professional values, your accountability, ethics, impartiality? No! You are who you are. You don't leave any values at the door. You bring yourself to work, and so you have your personal values that you have your professional values. So when you're at home, you're still accountable for your actions. It doesn't stop. You don't say like, oh well, I'm here now. This is there are different environments, but your values are what stay with you. And they help determine decisions and actions and policies and all those things. Okay, thank you. All right, so you have these in front of you. These are the values and guiding principles of public procurement: accountability, ethics, impartiality, professionalism, service, and transparency. Building blocks. Okay. So back to definitions, code of ethics. Basically what this is saying is the code of ethics are your principles, are the underlying principles, just like the underlying values. These are the things that motivate the policies that happen. So this is like the overall thing, but it's not actionable. You need policy to make theory and principles actionable. Policy is what supports you. This makes you feel good, but it's not very effective. Policies are effective. And this is code of ethics, and this is on the NIGP website, and this is general principles, all right? But there should be policies for your procurement agency to follow. And not just the agency, but anybody who's working with procurement. There should be policies for that, because there are things specific to procurement, such as the ones on the ethical failure encyclopedia, and we'll see more. All right, so this is a public procurement practice. So what are the global best practices? What's a global best practice? What's a global best practice?
Recognized globally?
Okay, so the global best practices are documents of guidance on specific topics within procurement. So task forces are brought together. We do a lot of research, a lot of discussion, and out of all that, we generate content to provide you with guidance, with information that you can apply as appropriate to your agency. All right. So this is an example just on the front page of a global best practice. They call them global best practices because that's the vision. We'll know we reached it when they're all over the world. I'm more comfortable with the top left public procurement practice. Because ethics are different all over, aren't they? There are some, I forget where I heard it, but somebody was visiting another country and they were talking about ethics and the policies and no bribery and no kickbacks and no this and no that. And the person, somebody in the audience raised his hand and he said, well, if you can't give bribes, how do you get electricity? Like, how does anything happen if there are no bribes? All right, so there are different cultures. So I'm just going to say this is US Canada. All right. So again, ethical procurement, this is a resource. This one really deals more with the agency and more obvious things like conflict of interest and bribery, gratuities, and supplier hanging out and all that. So, but it's there for you, and it's under Find Procurement, NIGP website, Find Procurement Resources, Guidance, top on list global best practices. So it's there. And so that'll be more applicable to your agency as opposed to a broad overall principle. All right, this is the ABA, American Bar Association Model Procurement Code. Anybody familiar with it? Okay, many states have adopted or used part of it in Article 12, and that deals with ethics. So that's a treasure trove of information. I believe Article 9 deals with protests. So when you have in your solicitation the right to protest, it may very well come from the Model Procurement Code. So, right, so this was established by the American Bar Association, and worth your while to just take a look. And so here's Article 12. Here's an example of the things that they cover and say how to deal with it. And so policy, you can pull policy from all these things. You know, lots of good information, lots of, you know, examples of what can go wrong. All right, so again, exposure, I want you to be aware of these resources. So that's not on the book. Okay, so that's not on the NIGP website. And if you look for it on the internet, there are a lot of copies that want you to pay for it, but if you search carefully, you'll find a version that you don't have to pay for. So it is there. Right, so Model Procurement Code, so for that Article 12, here it is, impartially. Right, conduct yourselves in a manner as to foster public, so again, public trust. There it is again, that pillar, public trust. Okay, thanks. You know, these are just examples of things that go wrong, and the reason we have policies so that we can do something about it when they're discovered. Okay, and this is another one. Yeah, I mean, it's unthinkable. It's like, how can somebody even think to do this and think that they're going to go get away with it? Right, 13,800 in membership dues to a private shooting club. 243,000 on liquor described as instructional supplies. I know there's a number of you that are working at schools, K through 12 universities. Can you imagine pulling that off? It's unthinkable, but it happens. It happens. All right, more resources. Okay. All right, so right now the textbook, so this one's not free. Legal aspects of public procurement. Okay, so the whole gist of this textbook and the course is to differentiate between law and a code of ethics. So not like you talk about a code of ethics. So when it's law, then there are civil and criminal penalties attached. When it's a code, you know, it's not as rigid. You know, there may be consequences, but they're not legal consequences. So this whole thing, this is the importance of having things in statutes, having things written, because those are really going to be enforceable, but the codes are the guidance. So just to appreciate the difference between them. Okay. Right, so they're law, binding. I guess the key word here is binding. Okay. So an example is, somebody that I worked with on the task forces gave me an example. He said 40 years ago, there was a supplier and the supplier offered him like this is 40 years ago, you have to remember, a 35mm camera. Big deal. He turned it down. Guess what happened when he turned it down? His colleagues got really upset with him. They really lied on him because it made them look bad because they had all accepted their gifts. Check back a year later. So the same supplier that offered the camera and gave all these nice gifts used to provide upper management with an annual fishing trip. All the trappings. Beautiful place to stay, equipment, food, booze, you name it. Then one year they raffled off a car. And guess where that story landed? Second page, but above the fold. All right? So all those things. So that's just to kind of say the difference with cultures. So there's cultures, they can rag, but then the legal, there's consequences. All right, so when you write your policy, you want to think about the different obligations, ethical obligations. So to your employer. So what is it ethically that you owe to your employer? What's an example of something? you handle a lot of information in your day-to-day life, don't you? At work. Right, confidentiality. Right, and there's just expectations of how you conduct yourself at work and not at work, or what you post on Facebook or whatever. You know, and suppliers, there's ethical obligations to be impartial, to treat everybody fairly, to provide the same information, and also confidentiality. There's a lot of innovation in those proposals. You know, so those are things to think about. How do you integrate those into your policy? Because there's ethical policies and ethical expectations, not just for your agency, your staff, or people that do procurement. There's also for the suppliers. So there could be a code of ethics for suppliers. Expectation: if you are going to do business with our school, with our hospital, with our airport, here is what we expect of you. And that goes to responsibility. So not only capability and capacity, but integrity. We want you to have integrity for the suppliers. Okay. All right. So this is an example. Are you overwhelmed with resources? A little bit. Okay. So don't worry about it. Just let it go. Just let it go, because you know where to find them. So as it's just awareness today. All right. No test. It's just awareness. So this is an example of a position paper. Again, these are written by an NIGP committee called the Legislative and Position Committee. And the main gist of this, and this up, you need to step back and say, okay, before we had to check it at this point, now that's automated, so how are we going to ensure that things are going to happen the way they should? Okay, all right. And of course, there's a global best practice on transparency. And just, right, NIGP will be transparent in its practice. Yeah, the more open, the more sunlight sterilize, sunlight cleanses. So keep it open. So anything else there too? Right. Right, if you have everything in the open and everybody can see, and things are less likely to happen that shouldn't. So, bring it home. See, I found a picture of your state capital. All right, so these next slides are things that you probably already know, so let me just check on that. Yeah. Who's familiar with this? Is this like, okay, that's your Bible. Okay, so, and it lists, just like the model procurement code, just like the encyclopedia of ethical whatever, here's a list of things to take into account. All right, and so we can just boom, boom, boom through these, because you all know these, right? And so here too is your content. Here too is the information that you want to integrate and think about when you're writing your policy, ethical policy. Okay, and let me just say, okay, well soon we're going to be, okay, we get all there. Okay, so there's all these detailed lists of everything that can go wrong. But can we really control everything? Can we really predict every ethical violation that's going to happen? No, of course not. So we don't want to end up with a Harry Potter scenario with Professor Umbridge, you must not, you cannot, do not do this, this is forbidden. You can't do it. You can't do it. It's the same way like with public-private partnerships, which go on for 30, 50 years. You can't predict what the issues are going to be, but you have to write into the solicitation an approach to what those issues might be. Because those issues might involve, I mean, there was no technology, there was technology. Who knew? Who knew that contracts put in place would have to deal with it? Who knows what's in the future? We'll find out this happening, in a little bit, we'll find out. So it's really, it's a tricky balancing act between knowing all these detailed, specific potential violations and wanting to have enforcement for them, and at the same time, who knows how creative people are? People are really creative. So knowing that you can't cover everything, yet how do you do a policy that supports you and allows you to respond and enforce? It's tricky. Okay, let's go. All right. All right. Okay, so let's stop here. So, okay, totally unreadable, bright colors. So the question is, you know of some wrongdoing, do you report it? Or is it worse to be a snitch? Who wants to be a snitch? Ugh, you don't want to betray anybody. You know, so this is an example of, you know the code, you know what you're supposed to do, but what are the factors that influence you and determine whether or not you stand up and speak out? So a couple things came up with here. It's management. What's management doing? Are they setting the example? Are they encouraging communication? Are they encouraging you to speak out and say what you're thinking and give feedback on ideas or things? Just in a general way. Like even if there's no violations, what happens day to day? Is communication, is speaking up, is standing encouraged? Can you play devil's advocate to get a better product? Or is it pretty much like, oh, I don't have staff, I can't say anything. So the whole environment, and this isn't just procurement, this isn't just organizations. Think about clubs or even, you know, any kind of place where people gather. Orchestras. The conductor sets the tone. They really set the tone. They can make it miserable. They make it pick out people, or they can make it be, anyway, or they can make it fun and you can be learning the whole time. It can be positive. So the tone is really set at the top for how people act and how free they feel to act and speak up. Yeah, who's going to speak up if you know, some people can handle retribution, but what if you've got a family? What if you're the one that they're all depending on? You know, you've got your values. Family may trump it. So you may not speak out even though you feel really strongly because there's too much to lose and there are too many people to lose. You know, who will lose if you're so principled. It's dangerous. It's really dangerous. And then the organizational culture, like the example before, the person, you know, people just accepting gifts. Oh, of course we do it all the time. Yeah, we've got a really good relationship. Right? And team dynamics, you know, you have these relationships with the people on your team, in your unit, in your office, in your department. You're working together, you know each other, you know, what's going on in each other's life. You don't want to do anything that's going to hurt anybody. You don't want to, you know, if a really good friend is doing something you don't think it's right, you know, you talk to them and go ahead. And what are you going to do? You're going to betray your friend? It's tough. It's tough. Okay. All right. So this is we went through all these detailed resources, but here's the big broad view. Pillars: public service, public trust, justice. That's your guiding light. That's your foundation. That's your check in with all the time. You probably won't go wrong if you check in with those pillars. Guiding principles, the same. All the principles, personal, professional. So the pillars and the values. So the pillars are your purpose. The values guiding principles are your why. And then the global best practices are basically values in action. They show you how to operationalize those values and guiding principles. And then other resources, you know, we went through. And okay, so finally there's accreditation. So this is kind of the closing the loop. So you have your purpose, you have your why, you have your what or how to do these things. And then you put them into action. And then what accreditation is the checkoff list to say, am I doing this? It's the value-driven self-assessment. So, I mean, and I'm not saying to do this, I'm just showing you the continuum. I'm not pushing anything that costs money. So there's an accreditation called Outstanding Agency Accreditation Award. And it's a list, and actually we're in the process of updating it now and making it better and more valuable. But it's basically a checklist of criteria that asks you to look in the mirror and with a really honest look, because we're not checking. The Pareto verifies, we don't. You know, submit some supporting documentation for some of the criteria, but some of it just check it off. Say, yeah, we're doing that, we're fine, we're good, we're good. Anyway, so that closes the loop. So you have your purpose, you have why, you have what, you have how, and then you get to check off, yeah, we're doing it, or forgot about that one, maybe we better be on that. So what I want to point out in the accreditation is that the first 4 questions have to do with mission, with vision, with values, with strategic plan. Who here has a strategic plan for their entity or the department? Yay. Okay. These are really your compass. So again, vision, who you are, what you do. Vision, where you're going, what you hope to achieve. Values, your why, your moral compass, your ethical compass. Who knows what a strategic plan is? Really? Okay, that's okay. All right. Many organizations have a plan. What do you call it? A plan, a strategic plan. They have a plan. What are we come to work every day. Where are we going? What are we doing? What are we working on? Where do we want to be? It's usually for 3 to 5 years. And what it does, so if you start with your mission, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's where we want to be, your strategic plan, values, here's what's motivating us. The strategic plan fills in that gap. So you can start with where you want to be, and you say, okay, we want to graduate every child that comes to our school. We want them to come to school, we want them to learn, and we want them to graduate and go on and be productive citizens of the world. All right? So that's your vision. You have these educated kids that go out and are productive in the world. So what do you do? Well, we're a school, we're a K-12 school, and we provide educational materials and support for our students. All right, so you know who you are, you know what you do, you know where you want to be. The plan, the strategic plan, is how you get there. So you start with where you want to be. I mean, if you start with where you are, it's kind of more constraining, because like, oh, I don't know, we got these budget problems, we got things, we can't really run, we're short staffed. But if you start where you're going, then there's possibilities, then there's creativity, then there's potential. Like, okay, so we see in our mind this vision of all these kids graduating, going on, being productive and happy and all that. Great, what does that look like? Well, it looks like it would look like this. Okay, what would it take to get there? Well, it would take, okay, so what does that look like? What would it take to get there? What does that take? What does that look like? What would it take? And then you make a plan for the next 3 to 5 years about, okay, we start with the vision, we're back to present day. So for the next 3 to 5 years, our goal is the outcomes we're looking for. What we want to see is boom, 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 boom. Graduation rate, retention rate, professionalism of teachers, certification, whatever it is, you have those outcomes, and then you put your strategies together for how to achieve it. Okay, we're going to hire 2 blah, blah, blah specialists. We're going to, whatever it is. You have your strategies, and then you have SMART goals. Does that ring? Right, okay, so you get your SMART goals, so you know when you've gotten it, when you hit the nail on the head, when you've achieved what you're set out to do. So that's your strategic plan, and then of course you want to do your SWOT analysis. You want to see what the external You want to see what your internal strengths and weaknesses are. What do you have going for you that you can bring to bear on your plan? And you want to look externally at opportunities and threats. Lots of things going on that are outside of our reach, like natural disasters, wars, policies, laws. They're all going to impact you. Some you have control over, some you don't. Some you can leverage. There's a big industry, moving to Salt Lake City. Great. Well, how can maybe they can support some initiative at the school. Maybe we can have interns or mentors or set up some kind of programs with them. Okay, and questions? So those are important because without a mission, where's your compass? How do you know if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? You don't even know if it's easy to get off balance if you're not sure who you are and what you're doing and where you want to go. If you have those things, then you can say, okay, is that going to get me where I want to go? Or is that something else and somebody else's thing? Questions? Comments? Is this all new?
I'd say I brought a lot of these kind of common ideas from the private world to public, but there's a lot of layers, and most procurements are part of an institution, and some of this stuff is principles, nothing from one principles values, but some of this stuff is brought down from the top. So when there's no appetite for those things, it falls on deaf ears, and if you can't create your own vision because you're not really in control of what you want to do in 5 years, you kind of have to say, will you let me? So it's not like as organic and internally controllable as it just sounds, because there's political layers to who's above you, what do they want from you, as opposed to what do you think is a benefit the procurement organization gives. So I'd be interested in hearing how do you, if ever, approach when people say, I would like to have these things, I would like to manifest my own destiny, but I am not necessarily in control.
Well, I got a practice for you. Yes, and we will get into that this afternoon, the strategic value of procurement. Because when we talk about future trends and where things are going, we're also going to be thinking about, because we are going to do this in the next session, about where you want to be, what you see as the optimal placement of procurement. Because, the entity should have all these things, and then procurement should be able to align its policies with the entity so you're all driving to the same thing. There is a way, and we will get to that. We definitely will get to that. It has everything to do with the strategic placement of procurement role and function and all that. Okay, on. Right, so already covered it. Oh, the other thing that the accreditation asks, that 084 thing, ascending credit, is what we covered in the beginning, and what we stressed out is make sure that it's written, make sure you have something to support you. It's not just kind of what you do, but it's how is it supported, so when things change around you, you can say, well, yes, we do it, and here's the code, here's the policy, here's the statute, here's the ordinance, here it is. So that's your support. So that's why it's really important to have all this stuff written. All right, wrap up, then on. Okay, so here's different things. So we're still on ethics. We're not yet on strategic value. This next one will be strategic value. Right, you want to have a policy, you want to have it written. And what good is anything, a strategic plan or a mission, and what good is it unless everybody knows and understands it? So education, training, you need it, you have to have it, you get that, spread the word, marketing has to have it, you gotta let people know what's going on. If you can, an ethics ombudsman, I'm sure nobody's got one, I mean, who would have one, but somebody impartial to handle things that come up so that you're not in this quandary of, oh God, if I stand up, I'll get slapped on the wrist. Of course, you want to process with checks and balances. One person handling all the finances. You want to have that checks and balances and audit. So we just recently published a public procurement practice under Find Resources, under Find Procurement Resources, under guidance, audits, and then we had a webinar. You can listen to that, look that up. Audits are great because somebody comes in, it can be internal or external, and they make sure that stuff is documented, the findings, that things are being done with these checks and balances. Now, if you can't have an audit, and there was an example of somebody that management said, no, we don't want an audit, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, let's not go looking for problems. What they could do then is do a self-assessment. So do their own kind of checklist of things about, all right, we have a retention policy, are we really destroying the documents that don't need to be kept? Are we keeping the ones we need to keep according to our policy? What are our policies? Are we abiding by them? How's our documentation going? Do we have checks and balances like that? So there are things to do proactively. All right. So here's a quote. Let you read. And those, can you see it? Or again, it's all about trust. Trust, service, justice. So it's all about checking in with those pillars. Right, so now it's on to your ethics policies. Do you have one? Is it aligned with the entity policy? Assuming, which you never do. Who knows not to? You never assume, right? My brother-in-law told me about that. How do you spell that out? The entity should have a policy, an ethics policy. They should have a strategic plan, mission, vision, and you want procurement agency to align with that so you're all going in the same direction. Right, and who does it? Who does it cover? It's not just about the staff, but it's anybody that's dealing with procurement. It's your suppliers, it's other stakeholders. Who do you want to direct that to or have a policy for? And this is for all of you to discuss, what issues are you or do you anticipate facing? And are they already addressed? Or how can they be addressed by your policy? And who should be involved when you do write this policy? Who should be involved? Who is it important to have at the table there? Okay. Oh, so okay, back one slide. So that was going to be your activity, and then kind of report back of anything you may have discovered. Okay. Let me see if there was anything more. I don't know if that was it. Keep going. I think that might have been it. Report back, and then right, and then just questions and a thank you. So it's up to you about timing. If you want to take some time, we can go back to the one about all the questions about policy. If you want to talk about that amongst yourselves, see what issues you're facing, what would be step one for creating a policy, an ethics policy, and what it might address. So I'm going to leave it up to you in timing. 5 minutes for them. Okay, why don't you take a few minutes, 5 minutes, look at those questions, see how it applies. Part of it today, I'm sure, is about networking and finding out what each other does, right? So take advantage of that and talk to each other. Okay, and then we'll ask a few of you again, what did you discover or what action steps did you come up with for even starting this? And let me know if you have questions. All right. new or insights? Can somebody share just a couple of insights into the school history on break? Anything to share? Stand up, share. Okay, enjoy your break.
Sorry.